Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive straight into what is, frankly, one of the most fascinating and tragic stories of corporate mismanagement in modern football. Today we're unpacking the downfall of Blackburn Rovers, which is essentially the ultimate case study of what happens when a historic sporting institution collides with chaotic, absentee ownership.
Think about this contrast for a second. How does a club go from the absolute peak of English football, literally lifting the Premier League trophy, to needing a judge's permission in Delhi decades later just to keep the lights on and pay their utility bills? I mean, how does a catastrophic shift like that actually happen? Well, let's find out.
Section 1. Kings of the Premier League.
Now, to really grasp the depth of the current crisis, we have to remember their pedigree. Back in that iconic 94-95 season, they were an absolute powerhouse. You had Alan Shearer blasting in 34 goals for the Golden Boot and the team racking up 80 goals total. They were the very first team capable of breaking Manchester United's stronghold in the Premier League era. Seriously impressive stuff.
And look, that kind of success wasn't just a fluke, right? It was built on a very deliberate formula. Backed by Jack Walker's incredibly passionate financial investment, managed by the legendary Kenny Dalglish, and spearheaded by that lethal SAS strike force of Shearer and Chris Sutton, who combined for 49 goals, by the way. Winning the title by a single point on a nail-biting final day at Anfield, that was the result of a highly stable, ambitious football institution.
Section 2. The Venky's Takeover.
Fast forward to November 2010, and that takeover triggers a timeline of decline that is just, well, it's astonishingly rapid. By January 2011, just weeks later, board members are already issuing written warnings. December hits, and the deputy CEO is practically begging for intervention. And then, May 2012, relegation. 18 months. That's all it took under absentee ownership to completely unravel decades of hard-fought stability.
Section 3. Warnings of a Nightmare.
What makes this whole saga so gripping is that the collapse wasn't a surprise to anyone inside the building. Less than 2 months after the takeover, the existing board, including the chairman and finance director, fired off a smoking gun letter to co-owner Anuradha Desai. They were utterly dismayed at being completely frozen out. Sam Allardyce was sacked, Steve Keane was appointed, and the board basically found out from the news just like the rest of us.
Actually, it gets worse. That exact same letter warned against a crazy new mandate from Venky's, stating the new manager no longer had to report to the board on transfers. The executives were terrified. The board was suddenly reduced to a rubber stamp, processing transfers with zero strategy and completely isolating the club's financial guardrails. Plus, they openly questioned the club's new, unchecked reliance on the SEM sports agency to bring in players.
So the internal panic quickly reaches a total boiling point. By December 2011, just 11 months in, Deputy CEO Paul Hunt sends this absolutely desperate plea. He literally begs the owners to make changes to save the club, not just from relegation, but potentially from administration. He saw the iceberg coming, pointed straight at it, and the ship just kept sailing full speed ahead.
Section 4. Present-day financial crisis.
Those red flags were completely ignored, and the present-day aftermath is devastating, which brings us to a massive number, £10.4 million. That's the staggering net loss Blackburn Rovers just announced in their latest accounts up to June 2025. And this is a severe drop, especially considering they actually turned a profit the previous year, thanks to a major player sale, and overall revenue even went up by 11%. So you have to ask, where on earth is all the money going?
Well, the math gets pretty terrifying when you break it down. Right now, for every £100 Blackburn earns in revenue, they are spending £119 on wages. Just think about that for your own bank account for a second. It's a completely unsustainable business model that absolutely guarantees you'll bleed money. And compounding this terrible math is a massive external crisis. Venkateshwara Hatcheries, the parent company of Venky's, has actually been locked into a severe legal investigation by the Indian Ministry of Finance since 2023. Now, this isn't just a bad PR day. This directly starves the football club because it freezes the normal, everyday flow of funds from the owners in India over to the club in England.
Which neatly answers our opening mystery. Because of those overseas legal issues, Venky's literally had to get approval from the High Court of Delhi just to send £18.4 million to Rovers. And what was it for? Not to buy a star striker, not for stadium upgrades, it was strictly to cover basic, day-to-day utility bills and wages. In fact, there was a strict legal ban on using a single penny of it in the transfer market.
It's gotten so bad that the financial auditors officially flagged this in a chilling report.
They stated flat out that unless the overseas legal matters are resolved, a material uncertainty exists about the company's ability to continue as a going concern. Translated from plain English accounting jargon, that means the very survival of Blackburn Rovers is currently in doubt.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. When owners repeatedly ignore the screaming warnings of their own experts, who ultimately pays the price for a historic institution's ruin? The tragedy of Blackburn Rovers shows us exactly what happens when absentee ownership and ignored expertise collide. It leaves the fans to pick up the pieces of a broken legacy. Thanks for joining me, and keep questioning the structures behind the stories.